everybody, and welcome to this conversation about why entrepreneurship is important at TU Dublin. My name is Susan HayesCulleton and our business is based right here at the Greenway Hub at TU Dublin. During the preparation for this conversation, I thought about my own interaction with entrepreneurship at an early age, and then during my student years, and then subsequently as I set up a company and have subsequently then grown it. When I was a little girl, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And when I say I always wanted to be, I mean I'm going right back to when I was 3 and 4 and 5. I used to set up businesses with my teddies. They were always very quiet as well. I had a very quiet customer service department because they didn't take an awful lot of complaints along the way. But I really and truly thought that you had to be long past college before you could ever think about setting up your own business. The thing is, at the time, I probably was right. During my primary school education and then secondary school, and even into my own third level education, there wasn't really the opportunities to engage with entrepreneurship like there is today, even though I would have loved it, except one. And that was that I joined the Business Society when I was studying my undergraduate degree in financial maths and economics. Every Monday night for 4 years, we used to hear from entrepreneurs all over the country talking about their journey. And I thought, I really love what they're talking about. But still, I had no bridge into it. Now, little did I know, but actually through the network of that society, I then went on to meet my co-founders, my first employer, and also other people that would be helpful for me along the way. Today, if I was an undergraduate at TU Dublin, my experience could be very, very different. And that's what you're going to hear all about in our conversation with two fantastic people from TU Dublin who's going to talk to you all about that. But anyway, after that, I went on and I did set up my first company back in 2010. And I started off in an incubation centre and engaging with a university from the very beginning. I did that through basing myself in an incubation centre in DCU. And then I went on to engage with universities in Ireland through the Innovation Voucher and the Innovation Partnership. They have been pivotal in our journey. They have offered crucial engagement with universities, different access to talent, and really enabled us to risk share right along the way. Again, you're going to hear all about those thereafter. But apart from that, and beyond universities in Ireland, I have found being based in a university in Ireland has enabled me to connect with their university network abroad. So we have hosted virtual interns from other universities. I have spoken at other universities around the world as a guest mentor. I've participated in their incubator sessions, etc. So what I would say is, if you are a student and you, like me back then, is wondering how do you engage with entrepreneurship while still being in university, we are going to have the answers for you in this conversation and right throughout this We Support series. And perhaps instead you are somebody who is at the end of your university journey but at the start of an entrepreneurship one. You can again engage with the community in many ways, and you're going to learn about that in this conversation too. Of course, finally, maybe you want to be a future member of the community. Maybe you are somebody who wants to engage with the university as a member of industry or in any other way. Open your mind to the possibilities, because not just are they there, they're growing and in abundance. So on that note, I'm going to introduce you to our two guest speakers today. We first of all have Dr. Mary Meaney. She is Registrar and Deputy President of TU Dublin. And also we have Dr. Shawna Johnston, who is the Business Development Manager right here at TU Dublin Hothouse. So on that note, I'm going to hand you over now to Dr. Mary Meaney, and she's going to take us through her journey to getting to this stage.
Thanks for that, Susan. I'm delighted to be here today. And as Susan has said, my name is Mary Meaney, and as you'll probably tell very quickly from my accent, I'm not originally from Dublin. I'm originally from West Waterford. And from there I set off on my journey, having completed primary and secondary school in West Waterford, and I headed to what was then NIHE Dublin. So while I'm not an entrepreneur, I think you will hear from my story as I talk through it that I am somebody who is attracted to startups. So I attended NIHE Dublin in its very early years, where I studied an undergraduate degree in science, and then liked student life so much decided that I would stay on, and I did a PhD in chemistry. Having completed that, I headed off to Australia for a short while before coming back and being employed as an academic in DCU. And during that time as an academic, I had great time interacting with students, indeed setting up a research group, and interacting with the academic community in a very vibrant university. But for me, there was still something that maybe wasn't quite, or was missing in terms of how I wanted to interact with students, and indeed maybe expand the opportunities for students as they interacted with their third level experience. So I decided that I would move, and I moved to become the Assistant Registrar in DCU. And at that time, I was involved in setting up what would have been the very first online delivery of results to students within the university, and indeed setting up many of the supports that have continued and hopefully advanced to allow students now to interact more fully with the university. At that time, I was still, I suppose, looking around to see what other opportunities were available. And one of the things that caught my eye was an ad for a new third level institution. In this case, it was the Institute of Technology in Blanchardstown. A new institution that hadn't been set up, one that was setting up on what was described as a greenfield site, turned out definitely to be a brownfield site. And I applied, and luckily enough to be appointed as the Registrar for Institute of Technology Blanchardstown. That was in 1999. I took up my post in July 99, and we welcomed our first students. Again, a new setup, a new startup, in September 1999. The post of President of Institute of Technology Blanchardstown was advertised a couple of weeks later, and I was encouraged to apply and did so, and was very, very lucky to be appointed as the first president of the Institute of Technology Blanchardstown, indeed the first female president of an Institute of Technology in the country, in 2000. I had spent many years, I suppose, again, building what was a startup, building a new Institute of Technology, a really exciting opportunity, and one which I absolutely grasped. But one which I grasped from, I suppose, the aspect of the student. What was the opportunity for the student? How could we build an Institute of Technology which brought to the forefront the skills that students would need in the 21st century? And many of those are the entrepreneurial skills that Susan indeed has demonstrated in terms of her career to date, and that we will hear from Shawna later. And that journey took me to a further opportunity, and this time it was the opportunity to look at the setup of Ireland's first technological university. So the prospect of a technological university as a new type of university within Ireland was first mooted in about 2012, whereas we were involved as Institute of Technology Blanchardstown with Institute of Technology Tallaght and indeed Dublin Institute of Technology. In 2016, I was asked whether I would lead or whether I was interested in leading the team that would prepare and apply to become Ireland's first technological university. Again, a task, a startup, an opportunity that I took on. I'm delighted to say we were successful, and Technological University Dublin came into being on the 1st of January 2019. I subsequently applied and was appointed as its first registrar and deputy president. So I'm delighted to be here today to discuss with this panel the opportunities that are there for entrepreneurship, for embedding entrepreneurial skills within our curriculum, for supporting students, for supporting businesses, for interacting with our alumni, and indeed to enhance and learn, hopefully, as to what else we can offer as TU Dublin.
Thank you very much indeed for that introduction, Dr. Mary Meaney. And a couple of things stood out to me about her introduction. First of all, I lost count of the number of times that Mary mentioned the word opportunity. And I think that really underpins the essence of our conversation today around why entrepreneurship is important at TU Dublin, because it is full of opportunity. The second thing that stood out to me is how many times she referred to startup, or the whole idea of taking an idea and running with it and implementing it and putting the student at the core. Because isn't that what we do in business, is we get ideas, we put our customers first, and we put people around us and supports around us so that we can turn ideas into reality. In fact, starting a university and starting a business, there are many parallels in between the two. And the third thing that I really liked about Mary's story is that she constantly is growing and innovating with, yes, great people, and also she grasps opportunity. That was a word she also mentioned a number of times, is to grasp the opportunity. And certainly there's a lot for us to learn in that. So before we go back to Mary, and we will certainly hear from her during the panel discussion, let's now go to Dr. Shawna Johnston, who is the Business Development Manager right here at TU Dublin Hothouse, and we will hear all around what path she has taken in order to arrive at this destination thus far. Over to you, Shawna.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Susan, for the introduction, and thanks, Mary. It's wonderful to be here with both of you. So as Susan said, I'm the Business Development Manager here at TU Dublin Hothouse, and much like Mary, you can also tell from my accent that I'm not originally from here. So I'm from Canada, from Calgary originally. So I did my PhD there in microbiology. It was a bit of a hybrid between industry and pure academia. So my research group got funding from energy companies to work on more applied projects. So my degree ended up being more in how microbes impact pipeline corrosion. And honestly, towards the end of it, I didn't really enjoy it, and I probably would pick something different if I'd gone back again. However, I finished my degree, and then I went on to work in the energy industry in Calgary for several years, where I was working to develop new technologies to predict pipeline corrosion and make pipeline use safer. One of the things I was always very interested in was industry-academic collaboration. So when I moved into industry, a lot of the SMEs wanted to work on very big problems that they didn't have the resources for, and collaborations aren't as much of a focus in Canada as they are here. So I was really pushing to get industry and academics to work together on projects to solve different, very technical problems. And I was also quite interested in entrepreneurship, which didn't have much of a push, again, when I was younger, much like Susan referenced. So I did what I could, and I enjoyed my time there. And then I ended up finding a job at DCU, actually. So after several years working in industry, I ended up finding a job at DCU in technology transfer, which was an area I hadn't quite heard of in Canada because, again, it's not focused on very much there, and I thought it was quite interesting. So I packed up my life and moved over here and began my career in technology transfer. And I've then moved over here to TU Dublin Hothouse, where I'm the Business Development Manager. So my role here at TU Dublin Hothouse now focuses on engaging with industry to match them with our academics, to work on collaborative research projects to help their companies innovate, and also student entrepreneurship, so we can help students to develop their ideas and become potential spin-out companies for TU Dublin. So some of the specific supports available to students would be iVenture. It's our student accelerator program. It's a pan-university program open to all students. That's part-time, full-time, post and undergraduate students are all welcome to apply. It's basically a crash course in entrepreneurial skills. So if you have an idea and you'd like to, work it out a bit more and see if it has some legs, this is a really fantastic program. It's a collaborative working space, and usually by the end, the teams will be able to have a solid business plan together and a business pitch. It is quite competitive. There's a pitching competition at the end, and the winner gets €5,000 of seed money and ongoing supports. Other supports available would be the New Frontiers program. This is funded by Enterprise Ireland and hosted at TU Dublin. This is a similar program to iVenture, however, it's also open to entrepreneurs within the community, as well as staff and students. And then we have different spin-out supports for our spin-out companies. One of our student spin-outs is Micron Agritech. So they wanted to revolutionize the farming industry and animal health care by using more technology and less medications. So they came to us with their idea, and we helped to patent that idea and got them patent protection. We also helped to develop their marketing and branding and get them some incubation space. And we've now been able to help them grow to the stage where they are now, and we're looking at different supports that suit their stage of growth right now. So our most recent student spin-out is Moose Vegan. So they were a group of elite athletes here at TU Dublin, and they came up with this idea while working on their Masters in Business and Entrepreneurship. And they saw that there was a gap in the market for high-protein vegan sports drinks. And so they wanted to develop this product, so they came to Hothouse, and we helped them with funding to work with our Food Innovation Lab to develop their product. And they've now moved on to working with the Super Value Food Program, and their product will be launched in Super Value shortly. And they also have incubation space here in the Greenway Hub, and we are helping them with ongoing supports through networking, mentoring, and getting them into conferences and showcasing their product. So another of our student entrepreneurs is Mir. They did the New Frontiers program through TU Dublin, and they are 2 first-year engineering students who started a tech startup developing a smart mirror, which is a very interesting idea that I think we'd all like to have. So Mir continues to engage with TU Dublin Blanchardstown for ongoing supports and development of their products. They're working with the Link Centre over there, and we do have many other options from Synergy as well, and they've all participated in the iVenture program and done very well. So if you're a TU Dublin student with an idea that you'd like to further develop, please come talk to me and we can look at the iVenture program and other supports that would be available to you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Dr. Shawna Johnston. And again, there's a couple of things that really stand out to me about what Shawna has said. Number one, at the very beginning of what she said, is that she said industry collaborations are all about businesses wanting to solve big problems but not having the resources to do it. And that was exactly my experience with both of our innovation partnerships. It is having big ideas, but the risk of taking them on and really wanting to do something about them could overwhelm the company. So instead, by actually bringing the expertise and all of the resources that a university can, as well as the energy and the ideas and so on of industry, can really work well together. The second thing that stood out to me is when you think about the practical supports. She mentioned a range of companies and how they've actively engaged with the university that have made a tangible difference. So I think that that's often, a myth that's out there, is that, well, is there really help, and what really could it do for me? You've heard now some real stories about how to do that. And number 3, just going back to my earlier story about when I was in college myself and when I had lots of entrepreneurial energy but not sure where to go, now there is a direct point. Shawna invited you to reach out directly to her. She spoke about the iVentures programme, and just broadly speaking, the whole ecosystem that is here at TU Dublin can be hugely, hugely beneficial to companies and entrepreneurs and students all along the way. So on that note, now let's have a more broader conversation around the importance of entrepreneurship at TU Dublin. And Mary, can I go back to you first of all? And the whole theme, as I say, is why is entrepreneurship important at TU Dublin? What does TU Dublin get out of engaging with people like me along the way?
Well, I suppose the big thing we get out of engaging with people like you is, back to my word, the opportunity. The opportunity for our students, to engage with the university, but to hopefully to engage with the university with that very open mindset, with looking at those opportunities that are out there for them. Maybe they can work for somebody else, maybe they can set up their own business, maybe they can learn from your experiences in terms of what you've done to set up your own business. Maybe they can take some of your learnings and use those in terms of the projects that they carry out here at TU Dublin, in terms of the research that we carry out here, or indeed to help some other companies as they go along their journey in terms of their development and how they progress. So to me, the entrepreneurial mindset is something we really would like to inculcate in our students. So it's that open mindset, it's that look at all of your opportunities, it's how do you approach your learning, how do you approach your learning right throughout your life. And if we could encourage students to do that from an entrepreneurial point of view, I think Ireland Inc. would benefit hugely.
So really, Shawna, from what I'm hearing from Mary here, is that it is a two-way system, is that everybody benefits from all this. One question that I have for you is, if I was, again, going back to that, undergrad student that I was, and let's say I came up with an idea, how much or how developed does that idea need to be before reaching out and talking to you? The reason I say that is that there could be people watching here today and they're unsure about how developed it's going to be, or are you going to say, look, okay, you're not at the stage where you can come and talk to me. Maybe if we could just speak to maybe the underconfident student who is nervous about pushing that button.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, Susan. And we do get a lot of students that are quite unsure about things because they just don't have the experience of the terminology or what would be available. So your idea doesn't need to be very thought out. We do work on what's called an invention readiness level. So there's kind of a 1 to 9 scale. And we'd usually suggest students come to us at about a level 3. So what that means is that you have an idea, you've thought about it a little bit, you've maybe talked to some family and friends, you've done a little bit of research that you can to see if, something else exists or if you think it's a viable idea. And if you think there's something to it, just call me and we'll have a chat. The first thing I'll probably do is send you a lean business canvas to fill out and to just give it a try on your own. We don't need you to completely fill it in. But just it helps you to kind of focus and see what you might actually need with your business and what supports we can possibly offer you. And then the next thing I'd probably get you to fill out is called an invention disclosure form. And so this is a confidential and sort of no obligation form. It's really a timestamp on your idea so that you put it in and it just marks that idea as yours at that point in time. And that kind of helps further along, especially if there's group projects. It keeps your idea as your own, and it doesn't tie you to do anything. It doesn't mean you have to commit or do anything with us. It's just something more for the student's own protection of their idea.
Well, I think you've actually spoken to a second concern as well there, Shawna, and that is, what if my idea is taken away by the university or anything else? And it's important that we articulate those fears along the way. Mary, you mentioned there Ireland Inc. And my understanding is that a university isn't there just to offer educational development for its students, but to promote regional development, to develop a talent pool for whether it's indigenous domestic companies or incoming multinationals and foreign direct investment. How does entrepreneurship fit into the overall strategic objectives of the university?
Well, I think it's absolutely core to what the university is about. A technological university, I suppose, is a new type of university in the Irish context, and I think it's even more important for us to look at the incorporation of entrepreneurship right through everything that we do, and it's embedded within our strategy. So if you think of, I suppose, what we do in terms of three legs of the stool, we have our teaching, where we will have, and again you've mentioned some of our programs earlier in terms of the Masters in Entrepreneurship and so on. So we have direct teaching. We also have research, and again there's huge opportunity for interaction with the academics, as Shawna has mentioned earlier, in terms of them doing some research yourself through your innovation vouchers and so on. And then there's also the engagement. And I suppose we tend to think sometimes of these as different aspects of our university life, but actually they're all linked up aspects of the university and fundamental to developing on our strategy in terms of what it is that we are actually going to do for Ireland. But I think learning is something that is there for every individual, and how you apply that learning is maybe where entrepreneurship really comes to the fore. So every individual within our country, those who want to come from international and so on, has that opportunity to decide what their learning path might be. And what we would like to do is actually open their eyes to the possibility that they might then apply their learning to the development of maybe new programs, to the development of companies, develop new products, and then through the likes of Shawna and through the likes of the Hothouse link or synergy, that we would hopefully encourage them but support them in developing that idea, and they would take a path that at some stage hopefully will benefit us all.
It's interesting, Mary, you're still putting the student at the core, which is brilliant. And it's just, I think it's really important that message is conveyed out there, is that at the end of the day, it is all about students and developing them in, as you say, whatever path they take. Speaking of paths, Shawna, I think there might be two types of people listening to us today. One might be somebody who is embedded in the community, whether they're an undergraduate student or they're an active student here. And then, of course, there may be other parties, perhaps they are leaving, they're going to be soon part of the alumni, or indeed they could be industry or companies who haven't engaged with the university yet that would like to be part of the community. So you did a super job earlier of describing what supports were applicable to certain companies. In a general sense, what is available to, let's say, that student or that business where they are the 3+ on that readiness level scale that you mentioned earlier? What can you do for them?
Great question. So for our current students, that's undergrads and postgrads, so there is the iVenture program. We'd always encourage our students to do that. It's a really great way for them to build up their skills and honestly see if they want an entrepreneurial life. Sometimes at the end of the program they realize maybe that's just not quite for them, and that's okay too. They can also take part in New Frontiers. Lots of our students would go from iVenture then onto the New Frontiers program to just get a bit more of those skills. So if they do have an idea, and let's say it's at that invention readiness level of a 3 or 4, maybe they're in the iVenture program, and they can always come talk to us, and we'll look and see if there are supports that we can offer. So if it looks like something that might be commercializable, something that we could commercialize, we would talk amongst ourselves in the office as a group and decide if there could be a commercialization plan. So we would first look and see if there's any intellectual property, and if there is, that's something we really like to work with. And then we'd come up with a commercialization strategy with the student group themselves. So it's a collaborative process together where we look at different routes to market and what supports we can offer them in terms of a spin out. And that will be a bit different for each one. In terms of the community and alumni, so we would generally suggest that they would try New Frontiers if they're looking for some more bit entrepreneurship training, or they'd like to kind of work out their idea a bit more. And they can also then work with our researchers on collaborative projects through innovation vouchers, for example. So a lot of companies might have an idea for a product, but they would like to maybe build a prototype so that they can take it out to demonstrate. So we can do innovation vouchers for things like that. Food companies might look at some recipe development. Technology companies might want a technology roadmap, something to that effect. And they can work with our researchers on a collaborative project through that means, and then we can support them in their growth in that way.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, Shawna, that the impact that can have on a person or a company is really immense. And I know you've seen that, but I'm just saying, to reiterate the point, it really, really does matter. Mary, I've often heard of TU Dublin being called a practice-based university. I mean, I don't really understand exactly what that term means. Would you mind maybe enlightening us as to what that is and how entrepreneurship ties into that?
Well, I suppose we certainly would pride ourselves on being practice-based, and I think all of learning is about either the generation or the studying of knowledge, the creation of knowledge. And what we would like to add, and the value add piece I think here at TU Dublin, is the fact that we can then apply that knowledge. And I think no better way to apply it than through the entrepreneurship skills that our students demonstrate, or indeed that our staff or those that come to the university. So it is that the fact that if you are a student of TU Dublin, you will have the opportunity to apply the knowledge, be it through our labs, be it through our workshops, be it through our studios, be it through our iVenture programme, that it is the practice, it's the opportunity to try it out, to see what the hands-on really feels like. It's not just the academic underpinning, it's the opportunity to really get in there, get stuck in, have a go at it and see, is this something that's for you?
Because, I mean, you can learn about entrepreneurship, as you say, but it really comes down to getting right stuck in, so it seems to match both together. And Shawna, we've spoken a lot about getting stuck in, but what about getting stuck out? In other words, you spoke there earlier on about a couple of companies, and they are at evolving stages. I mean, there's some that are really growing quite quickly or have developed quite a lot during their time. If I, let's say, was to work with a VC, they would talk about an exit. Is there an exit to a relationship with the university as well, and how does that play out?
So there is an exit at some point. It's not, if you're a TU Dublin spin-out, you'll always be a bit of a TU Dublin spin-out. But as the company gets more funding and gets more involved with investors, TU Dublin does take more of a step back and let the company go on its way because there's less supports that we can offer them. So we'd still offer ongoing supports in terms of networking, incubation space, perhaps supporting them at a conference, but they would need less of the initial setup supports. Most of the companies in Ireland, or the spin-outs, actually exit through a buyout. They typically get bought out for around 30 to 100 million euros, which is quite nice. We would very much like to see an Irish spin-out go all the way to becoming global and publicly traded, so that's something we would really like to see in the future.
Well, they are really impressive outs, all right, yes, certainly for sure. But I think that there's a wider conversation here, though, too, Mary, and that is about what is TU Dublin's strategy around engaging with its alumni, because this is a very relevant way of doing so.
Oh, absolutely, and I think we engage with alumni in many different forms and formats. And there's a real opportunity for it to be a partnership, for it to be a two-way conversation, a bit like the conversation we're having today. So, me standing in front of a student group may not have the same impact as either Shawna or yourself standing in front of a student group who've had that real, again, back to our hands-on practice experience. So there is an opportunity, and we're very involved in working with alumni to invite them back in to talk to our students, to invite them back in to talk to our potential entrepreneurs. But there's also, I think, an opportunity for our alumni to maybe help in other ways with the university, so they can engage with our research community, they can engage with our industry, they can use us as a conduit, as a partner to actually engage with other industries if that's what they wish to do. And I think, they can also come back, obviously, and study further with us. They can maybe contribute to many of the different programs that we actually have on offer. So our alumni are very, very important to us, but equally, I hope we're very important to them.
And when we talk about the alumni and indeed the community in general terms, I mean, I am aware, of course, Shawna, that this is the we support conversation. Have you found any specific requests, challenges, perceptions pertinent to female entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs? Is there any trends that you've seen there over the years?
There is, yes. One not surprising trend might be that women entrepreneurs tend to be much more shy or insecure about their ideas. I find that they don't tend to reach out and seek supports until they're much later on the innovation readiness level scale, which is okay. But often they would come to me when they've done market research, a focus group, tried to make prototypes in their garage, and they really push until they really feel stuck. And a lot of times they still don't feel good enough or in a good enough place to come seek help. So I'd really encourage them to come by early. I know we all have a bit of imposter syndrome and maybe don't think our ideas are that great, but they really are. And a lot of the women also might, I don't want to say feel embarrassed, but if they're making more of maybe a beauty product or something more tailored to women, they often think it's maybe not so important as one of those technical ideas. But we tend to forget women are still half of the population. So if you're making a product that's going to help half the population, it's still a very helpful thing, right? So I'd really encourage women to just come talk to us. Like, we're a safe place and we'll point you in the right direction, and you really don't have to struggle so much alone, and there's great supports and networks available.
And maybe if I could, as we do lead towards the end of this conversation, Mary, I suppose I'm asking permission to ask, really, your own experience as a woman coming through this journey. I mean, now you're the most senior woman within the organisation that is TU Dublin, and I doubt you're finished yet. There's a lot more to go, I think, yet. Could you speak to your experience of navigating your path, which really has been quite innovative? An awful lot of the things you've done haven't been done before. In the context of setting up a university of the nature of TU Dublin. So you have ventured where there wasn't a clear path beforehand. Could you maybe just speak to us a little bit about that in your own experience?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a little bit what Shawna has said there. I think there's something about believing in yourself. There's something about being willing to take a risk. And I don't know, is that a particularly female thing that we're a little more reluctant sometimes and we have to push ourselves? Believing, as I say, very much in the fact that it will be a calculated risk, and I suppose that's always one for me as well, in that, yes, look out there, look for the opportunity, take the calculated risk. You have to push yourself maybe that little bit more. Maybe I've done that in patches. I'm naturally attracted to living in ambiguity just as well, given where I've come from and what I do. I'm naturally attracted to being brave. It's a word that I use quite a lot. And it's not one that I'm saying, let's all get up in the morning and show our muscles. No, but there is something about, if you really, want to take on our one life that we have, well, there is a time to take some of the risks. There is a time to push that boundary a little bit. There is a time to push yourself. And I would say that to anybody. It doesn't matter what the area is. As I say, I'm not an entrepreneur, but I am very attracted to startup. I am very attracted to seeing, can we do things differently? Can we learn? We're a learning organisation. If we can't learn and if we can't push that, I think, to the forefront, I think there's something we're missing, and we're missing an opportunity.
And my final question picks up on the whole idea of attracted to being brave. I love that. I'm going to get more attracted to being more brave. I'm going to take a leaf out of Mary's book here. But let's say, Shawna, that there are people listening today and viewing today, and they do want to take that leap. What do you say is the key thing that they should do right away? Is it send an email to you? Is it check out the supports? Is it attend a webinar? What is the key thing that you would say, right, the first lesser scary step is along that journey?
I'd say check out our supports. That's probably the least scary thing that they can do. You can go to the Hothouse website. We do have old webinars posted there. You can look and see what is involved with that. And then just send me an email. We're a friendly bunch. We do want to help you. And we'll just kind of point you in the right direction, and we can go from there. So please reach out.
So there you have it. TU Dublin are a friendly bunch. Personally, I can actually attest to that as well. They actually really are. There's no doubt about that. But as Mary says, there is a time to take a risk. There is a time to be brave. There is a time to push that boundary. And perhaps those boundaries aren't there, but they only exist in your mind. So, of course, on the other hand, there can be very real ones that does need a steady hand and so on. But the best thing that you can do is talk to people who have walked the walk and who are happy to talk the talk. And getting that receptiveness at TU Dublin is really important. But in addition as well, there are some very hard supports that are available. Whether it is the support around your marketing and your branding and the intellectual property, or also, of course, you can also walk into pitfalls unintentionally, again, by getting guidance and mentoring around you can be very, very helpful along the way. But also, as Mary says, we are all collectively part of Ireland Inc. So whether you're from Ireland or whether you're not, whether you're part of the community or whether you're not, as long as you have that intention along the way of taking an idea and turning it into reality, TU Dublin really could have something very valuable to offer. So on that note, thank you so much indeed for joining us. It has been my absolute pleasure to interview Dr. Mary Meaney and Dr. Shawna Johnston. Really appreciate your time and your insights, and we truly wish you, each one of you, the very best along your own way.